I never thought my life would end in a contract. But there I was, standing in the penthouse of a man I'd never met, with a pen in my shaking hand and $1 billion signature waiting. It started 3 nights ago. I was sitting in the back room of the bookstore I worked at, barely making rent, barely surviving, when I found the envelope. No stamp. No name. Just 4 ivy in black ink across the front. Inside it, 1 sentence. Come to the Corinthian Hotel. 8 p.m. Wear black. Bring nothing. I almost laughed. Almost threw it away. But something about it felt final. Like a line in the sand. Or maybe a lifeline. I didn't own anything black, so I borrowed a dress from the thrift rack in the break room. It was 2 sizes too small and smelled like lavender and dust. I walked through the city that night feeling like I was stepping into someone else's story. When I arrived, the concierge said, "Penthouse. Top floor." He was already waiting for me. He stood facing the glass wall, overlooking the entire city, like he owned it, because he did. He turned around slowly, and when I saw his face, I forgot how to breathe. Adrian Lucien Verno. Billionaire. Heir to Verno Tech. My father's sworn enemy. I'd seen him in magazines. Heard his name whispered in every scandal. But nothing prepared me for being 5 feet away from him in silence. He didn't smile. Didn't blink. He slid a piece of paper across the marble table. "This is a contract," he said. "You sign it, and your father's debts disappear. You become mine for 1 year. That's the deal." I stared at the paper. "Why me?" His jaw flexed. "Because your last name is Duvall. That's all the reason I need." My heart stopped. My father had died 6 months ago in a car crash, bankrupt and disgraced. He'd worked for the Verno family before being accused of embezzlement. I had nothing to do with it. But Adrian didn't care. I should have said no. Should have walked away. But I had nowhere to go, no one to save me. And something in me, something tired and angry and hopeless, wanted to say yes. So I did. I signed the contract. And that night, I moved into his world. The penthouse was silent. No music. No staff. Just me, my suitcase, and the man who bought me. He gave me a room on the opposite end of the apartment, bigger than my entire apartment back in Brooklyn. White marble floors. A walk-in closet I'd never fill. A bed that could sleep 5. The only thing missing? Comfort. Warmth. Safety. He barely spoke to me the first week. He left early in the morning and came back long after midnight. Sometimes I'd hear the door open at 3 a.m., hear the soft sound of his shoes on tile, but he never came to my room. Never called my name. He was a ghost in his own home. But he watched me. I'd catch him staring, when he thought I wasn't looking. His eyes would trace my face like he was memorizing something he wanted to forget. One night, I walked past his office to get water. The door was cracked open. I heard his voice. "She looks like him. God help me, she even talks like him. But this time, she's not getting away clean." My blood ran cold. He wasn't talking about me. He was talking about my father. And now I knew, this wasn't a business deal. It was revenge. I should have left. I should have packed my things, broken the contract, and disappeared. But something kept me there, something heavier than fear. Curiosity? Pride? Or the unbearable pull of wanting answers my father never gave me? Adrian didn't speak to me again until the 10th day. He found me in the reading room, one of the few places in the penthouse that felt human. I'd lit a candle I wasn't supposed to. I was curled on the velvet couch, reading a book I didn't remember picking up. He walked in without knocking. "Comfortable?" he asked. I didn't answer. He stepped closer, then reached out and gently closed the book in my hands. "Do you know why I hate you?" he asked softly, like he was offering a secret, not a threat. I looked up. Because of my father. No, his voice was quiet. Because you look like your mother. The air cracked. My mother had vanished when I was 13, no note, no goodbye, just gone. My father never spoke of her again. And now this stranger, this man who bought me, was saying her name like it meant something. What do you know about my mother? I whispered. He didn't answer. He just turned and walked out of the room like nothing had happened. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing my mother's face, half faded in memory, floating next to his. Was there a connection I'd never known? Was this about more than my father? 2 weeks passed. Adrian became less silent, but not less cruel. He was cold, exact, and impossible to read. He never touched me, never raised his voice, but I felt trapped in a prison made of silk and marble. Until the gala. It was the first time he made me go anywhere with him. He sent me a dress, crimson, backless, stitched with diamonds so fine they shimmered like frost. And a note, wear this. No arguments. The gala was held in a glass museum overlooking the river. Billionaires, celebrities, political sharks, they all knew Adrian. And when I stepped out of the car beside him, all their eyes turned to me. He didn't hold my hand. Didn't smile. But when a man approached me, tall, French, with a smirk too familiar, Adrian stepped between us like a shield made of fire. This one's taken, he said, low and final. I didn't understand his sudden protectiveness, until later that night, when I caught him burning something in the fireplace. A photo. An old one. Of my mother. And the man from the gala. My mother had a past. And Adrian knew it. Maybe even before I was born. After that night, things changed. Adrian became more guarded. More careful. But also, more human. He started eating at the same table as me. Leaving his office door cracked. Asking questions. One morning, I found him on the balcony, barefoot, shirt unbuttoned, hair wild in the wind. He looked tired, not in the rich, worn-out way, but in the haunted way. Did you love her? I asked. He didn't look at me. No. Then why are you still burning her memory? He turned then, slowly, like the question hurt more than a slap. Because your mother ruined my father, he said. And I swore I'd never let a Duvall ruin me too. He walked away after that. But something was shifting. In him. In me. And it scared me more than the contract ever did. The kiss wasn't supposed to happen. It was raining. I had gone to the rooftop for air. He followed, trying to be silent, but the storm gave him away. I turned, and he was there, hair wet, sleeves rolled, eyes burning. You don't belong in this, he said, barely audible. You shouldn't be here. Then let me go. His jaw clenched. I can't. Why not? Silence. A heartbeat. Then he crossed the space between us and kissed me like it was the only way he could keep from falling apart. It wasn't soft. It wasn't sweet. It was war. And I kissed him back like I wanted to lose. Things fell apart after that. He pulled away. Shut down. Locked himself in his study for days. When I asked what was wrong, he said nothing. But something had broken. He no longer looked at me with vengeance. But he didn't look at me with love either. He was afraid. Afraid of what I was becoming to him. Then came the phone call. I answered by accident, the phone was buzzing on his desk, and I thought it was mine. A voice on the other end said. You're losing her, Adrian. You forget the plan? I froze. The plan. So it was all still happening. Every kiss, every moment, still a lie? I didn't confront him that night. I couldn't. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering if every moment, every glance, every kiss, had been part of some cruel orchestration. Was I a pawn? A punishment? A game? The next morning, he was gone. No note. No explanation. No apology. I spent 3 days alone in the penthouse, spiraling. Wondering how much of it was real. How much of him was real. And then I did the thing I swore I'd never do. I went looking for the truth. I started with the study. It was always locked, but the night before, he must have forgotten. The door creaked open like a vault in an abandoned castle. I found files. Hundreds of them. All marked Duvall. My father's name. My mother's. Even mine. Photos. Legal documents. Old surveillance stills from years ago. Letters written in my mother's handwriting. And tucked in the back, a birth certificate. Mine. But the father's name was blank. And suddenly, the silence made sense. When Adrian returned, I was waiting. I stood in the study, holding the birth certificate in one hand and a framed photo of my mother in the other. Tell me, I said. His face turned to stone. Put those down. Tell me why you've been watching my family for decades. Tell me what she was to you. He looked at the photo, not with hate, but pain. A pain so deep it silenced the air. She was my father's mistress, he said. And my mother's executioner. I stared at him, numb. She destroyed my family from the inside. Left behind chaos. Then disappeared. No one ever found her. And me? I whispered. He hesitated. That alone was answer enough. You think she was pregnant with your father's child, I said. And you think that child might be me? He didn't deny it. I left that night. Packed the little I owned, took the subway for the first time in weeks, and ran to the only place that felt remotely safe, the bookstore I used to work in. But the city wasn't the same anymore. I wasn't the same. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I kept asking myself, was I in love with him? Or was I just addicted to the pain? Then, 3 nights later, he found me. He walked into the bookstore like a storm with nowhere to go. You're not my sister, he said, without greeting. I blinked. My mother finally told me the truth. Your mother, she lied to both of us. About everything. I couldn't speak. She left because she wanted to disappear. Not from my father, but from me. From what she did. From what she knew. You were never part of that world. You were just collateral. I swallowed hard. And the contract? Was that just revenge? At first, he said. But not now. He stayed that night. On the bookstore floor. No touching. No words. Just the sound of the city breathing between us. In the morning, I found a new letter waiting for me. In his handwriting this time. Tear it up if you want. Or sign it again. But this time, with your name. Not your father's. It wasn't a contract. It was a deed. To the bookstore. Paid in full. In my name. I looked at him through the shop window. He was standing outside in the rain, hair soaked, hands in his coat pockets, like he didn't deserve to come in. But I opened the door anyway. We didn't rush back into anything. We took it slow. Coffee. Walks. Talks that didn't end in slamming doors or broken hearts. He stopped trying to control everything. I stopped trying to run from everything. For the first time in both our lives, we were just people. Flawed. Bruised. Still healing. The past didn't vanish. The scars didn't fade overnight. But one night, in the quiet of my tiny apartment, he whispered, I don't want revenge anymore. I want redemption. And I want it with you. And this time, I believed him. Months passed. He sold the penthouse. Bought a brownstone in Brooklyn with creaky stairs and a broken porch light. said it felt more like a life. He didn't take phone calls during dinner anymore. I published my first book, a love story. Inspired by us. But ending far less messily than ours had begun. And on a quiet autumn evening, in the same bookstore where we began, he knelt between rows of paperbacks and pulled a ring from a dog-eared copy of Pride and Prejudice. "I still don't know how to love like other people do," he said. "But I know I can't breathe without you." And I said yes. Not because it was perfect. But because it was real. I used to think I was sold. Used to think my life was a debt someone else had to pay off. But I wasn't bought. I was chosen. And in the wreckage of everything we lost, we found each other. He bought me to ruin me. But I ruined his heart. And in doing so, I saved my own.